All right, guys, today I am going to go through the assembly of the King TV accordion jib. This jib was one that they had at NAB, and it's basically a 15-foot jib, but it can telescope, lengthwise. So you can start off with maybe like a smaller 3 or 4 foot jib and extend all the way out to 15 feet. And it's motorized as it telescopes, and it kind of folds like an accordion, which is why it's called the accordion jib. So it's a very interesting product. If you haven't seen it, there's a few teaser videos from NAB also on their product page, a lot of interviews. It got a lot of attention. So this unit here is one that was at NAB, and I got no instructions assembling it. So I'm not sure for the people who did get it what instructions you're getting, but King TV asked if I could go through the setup process here to show how I put it together, and then hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys. Now, you got two different cases here. One case holds the actual folding jib itself, and then the other one is the tripod, because it comes with its own tripod with panning base, and also all the small pieces like the motor, and then like the jib head and counterweight system and all that other good stuff, caster wheels. So there's two flight cases. These cases are fairly heavy, but they do come with handles. There's also a handle here. It's a rolling case, so if you tilt it down, you could pull it along, and that'll get you to your destination. But they are fairly heavy. I want to say they're probably, I don't know, 60, 70 pounds maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but they are fairly heavy. Anyways, let's go through the process of setting this up. Now, I'm inside my home, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get you guys any good samples or anything, but we're just going to go through the setup process, look at all the pieces, where those pieces go, and how to operate it. And that's about it for this video. Maybe in a second video, I'll do something else when I take it to a location where we actually use it. So anyways, let's get started. So we've got a carbon fiber tripod. This is what holds the jib in place. This sits on top of the tripod, and then this is the spreader that goes below the tripod and keeps the legs from kicking out. So this is a spreader here, and then we've got these 3 caster wheels. To hold the casters in place, you're going to use these little they're not nuts, they look like little cups, but they're threaded, and that's what you use to screw it on. This goes directly underneath this unit and sandwiches between this tripod here, and then you have one little bolt that will keep the spreader in place. So we're going to put that together right now, show you how that works. The spreader, we kick this out. You'll notice there's like a little hole here. That's where you drop this little screw. So we've got this in place, and with this retaining screw here, it can't fold back out. The tripod now goes over here. Once you have the tripod in place, we're going to put the casters on, and this is what's going to hold the tripod in place. So we slip a caster under one of these legs, and then we use one of these cups. We just screw it on, and that will lock our tripod in place. So we'll do the rest of them. Okay, so we've got the tripod base built out, got the casters on, rolls around really well. If you don't want it to move, you've got locks on each one of these casters. You just click this on, it'll lock each one of the wheels. The next thing we want to do is we want to add this support here right on top. This one feels a little weird because it kind of floats around, and there are some adjustments here, and that's for you to level out this top plate here, but it has a built-in panning base, so you don't need anything else. You put this one screw under here, screw it all the way in, and we're done. Again, you would use these little adjustments here. There are 3 of them to kind of level out the head wherever you're at. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build out the accordion part, and then we're going to just place it on top of here. This jib does take 2 people to set up quickly. So I'm gonna get this part set up, and then I'll have someone help me mount it up on here. So we have the accordion jib part out right now, and we're going to add the motor. And you want to add the motor before you put it onto the rest of the, the setup, the tripod. The motor will keep the accordion from extending or retracting as you're lifting it. So right now, you could physically push and pull it, and you don't want to handle the accordion jib that way because you might pinch your fingers, right? So when we put the motor on here, it's going to lock the accordion jib, and it'll no longer be able to retract until we power the motor. So this is the motor setup right here, and it's going to fit onto these brackets like this. So these brackets have to be swung upwards. There's one bracket on each side. You have to line it up perfectly with the motor and then drop it in, and then use some of these bolts to hold it in place. So once you drop this in, we're going to tighten it up. Notice the position of this motor. We've got the rod extending towards the front of the jib. So these brackets are going to be towards the rear of the jib. There's also a little tail on the back end, and you'll see that later. But when you're setting up this motor, make sure that the brackets here are on the back of the jib, and then you've got this rod pointing towards the front. Your V-mount is pointing off to the side, and then you have a motor here that's going off of the other side. So it's going to fit in just like that. Now the cool thing about this entire jib setup here is they give you a lot of little thumb nuts. So you're not using any tools, you're not using like hex wrenches or anything like that. You're just really screwing things in by hand. So it's very quick. Let me show you some of these screws here. Now there are a lot of screws, but there's really only 3 different types here. And so it's easy to pick out the ones that you need and put it onto this jib. You don't have like a million different types. There's only 3 different types. They're pretty easy to detect. You've got a smaller one right here, very small, and it has silver on the inside. You also have a silver on the inside here. It has a fatter thread, and then you have kind of an all black one, and that one is another one that we're going to use for something else. So we're going to pick out the right bolts for this motor, and we're going to get that set up. The ones that we need are going to be the silver ones. So this one here and these here. There's going to be 6 of these that hold the this part right here. You've got 3 on each side, and then you've got 1 over here on this side. So we're going to use all the silver ones. All right, so we have 4 small ones, and that's going to go 2 on each side of this motor over here. All right, so the next thing we're going to do once we have this set up is just lift this onto the crane. Now, you could probably do it with one person. I'm going to have someone come in and help me out. Now, again, the motor is locked in place. It is motorized, so this accordion will not extend or collapse. You do not want to try to handle this without locking the motor, but right now, since it's locked in place, I'm okay to put my hands wherever I want because it won't change shape. So we're just going to grab this, lift it up. Now you notice that the bearings go in between, just like that. So the bearings drop in between these arms. We're going to rest this down. Okay, so we have the jib mounted up here, and we want to lock it in place to prevent it from coming up over these arms. So we have these red locks. You'll notice that there's a kind of dowel there. That's going to sit in the middle of the bearing, and then on each side we're going to use these black thumb screws here. And remember, they come with a lot of thumb screws, but they're generally all the same. And we're going to use the black thumb screws to screw it on and hold it in place, and that will prevent the jib from being removed from this top part. So we'll screw that in place. All right, so you probably noticed when we were putting this on earlier, we have some movement here at the base. And again, this is a leveling base. So at this point, I could look at the bubble level here, and I can turn this out, and I have 3 of these until I get my base leveled. All right, so I've leveled out the jib. I have a bubble level right here, and you turn the 3 knobs until you get it just right. There's a built-in panning base here. You notice that. And the reason you want to level this out is so that the jib doesn't start to sway towards the dip area. As you can see, if I rotate this around, it's going to stay where it needs to stay. And I'm going to exaggerate this for a bit. I'm going to loosen this up, and I'm going to throw my jib off balance. You'll notice now with the panning base, if I let go, it's going to swing around because the jib is not level. And that's why we want to make sure that we level out our jib so that when we pan, it's perfectly balanced on the pan area. Everything stays leveled. All right, so now we're going to mount the head of the accordion jib. This is what it looks like here. You see there's a little dovetail clamp that holds a gimbal. Now remember, this jib is designed to work with a gimbal. At the end of your jib, you will have a pan and tilt, motorized pan and tilt by using the controls on your gimbal. So something like the KMTV Argo, you mount it here, and as you jib up and down, you'll use the remote to pan up and down and tilt left and right. So you've got a motorized head on the accordion jib. So when we put this on, you want this little angular piece facing up. Obviously, this is towards the front. There's a little cable that comes with it as well. And then there are 4 thumb nuts that are used to mount it to these little clamps here on the side. Now, we're almost done with the jib, and we've required no tools to assemble this. No hex keys, no screwdrivers, no wrenches or anything. So it's really just been these thumb screws putting everything together. And we've got a couple of cables, but you know, no tools. Very quick to set up, not confusing at all once you know where all these little parts go. So let me put this head on, and then we'll get to the next step. So after we have the head on, we're going to add this cable, and this is what it looks like. Let's take the clip off first, and then we're going to screw this part up on the top. Then we're going to add this little clip here, and we're going to attach the head. And there's a little silver rod in the middle here, and that will keep the jib head in place. All right, now you've got this little cable here. Looks confusing, but that attaches to the back end here. There's a little screw back here, and basically you just loop this in here, pull that. There's a pulley up here on the top. So as you pull this over, this pulls up this back piece, slide that in place like this, and then it's going to lock in place. And that is how that cable is mounted to the rear. Now you've got these 2 bars right here, and this is where you add your counterweights. And there's a silver bearing on the side here. And you take these threads and you just run them all the way through on each side. So you just mount the rods on each side, and this is again where you're going to be adding all of your counterweights for the jib. This one huge knob right here is going to go on the back. That's going to kick this rear tail up, and we're going to add our joysticks on the back of that. So we lift this up all the way, and then we can run this huge knob over here and drive it all the way down, just like that. So on the back here we have a long rod, and then we have these little clamps that will keep the rod from sliding through. And we just slide this all the way through like this, and we're going to mount these handles on these clamps on the side. Just that will keep it from passing through. You'll notice that this rod does rotate, which is fine because we're going to add our joysticks here. And as we tilt the jib up and down, we'll be able to still maneuver our joysticks. This joystick right here operates the motor on this accordion jib, and it'll telescope it or retract it. So whatever side works for you. I prefer the right side, so I'm going to mount this over to the right. This right here plugs into the motor at the top. Then we have another handle here. This mount has a mount for the Came TV Argo remote. You just attach it here. Again, we can telescope the jib. At the same time, we could do pan tilt through the remote on the Came TV Argo once we mount it over to the end. We'll mount that over here. So as you can see, as we tilt the jib up and down, we're able to move our handles. Okay, so we have the Came TV accordion jib finally set up here. The final pieces I did was I added some weights here on this bar. I put the locking collars on to keep the weights from falling off. I added a V-mount battery to power the system. Remember, our switches are back here. And what I did was I added the Came TV Argo at the end of the jib. Now the Argo is turned on, but I don't have a camera on there right now. I'm just showing you how the accordion jib works. But it is on and it is stabilizing. And just to kind of give you an idea, with that gimbal at the end there, we're using about 60 pounds of weight on the back here. So 60 pounds. Now the way you want to balance this jib is you want to extend it to the fullest point that you plan on operating it. So if it's all the way, extend it all the way. If you're just extending it halfway, go halfway. And then you want to balance your system at that point. And then as you bring the system back in, it will remain fairly balanced. It's not going to be perfectly balanced, but it will remain fairly balanced. And it's still very easy to operate. So I'll show you. I can pull this down and I can pan around. So I have the panning base here. Now, if I had the remote for the Came TV Argo, I could do my pan and my tilts with my camera over there. And I can run an HDMI cable back so I could, view what the camera sees. But anyways, so if I wanted to bring this jib down here and I wanted to telescope it, I just push this switch. Now I actually have to step back also. So I can't stand in the same position because the rear extends as the front extends. So I'm extending it. And now I have a lav mic on, but you notice you don't really hear the motor too much. So it's pretty silent. So I got to back up a little bit more here. And I'm just about at the end right there. So, as you can see, I can operate it with one hand, balanced very well. And because we have a gimbal at the end of this system, that gimbal will keep your camera stabilized throughout any type of movement, whether it's up, down, or panning left or right, or even if you're telescoping the jib, your gimbal will feel very stabilized, so your camera movement should be very smooth. So I'm just going to retract it. Now I'm not even going full speed, by the way. You could go a lot faster than this. But you see, if this was a jib I didn't want to use at the time, I can collapse this jib. I can fold it down, and then with the casters here, we could kind of push it out to the corner, and we're not going to use it. And then if we want to use a 15-foot jib, again, if we want to use it at that length, we can use it at any length in between. Let's telescope this. So right now I'm going full speed on the jib. And right about there is full. So then we can operate our jib at 15 feet, and this is going to give us some crazy height. This is a really, really fun jib. But instead of leaving this around where people are going to run into it, when it's not in use, we're just going to fold this back up. All right, anyways, that's the assembly video for the Came TV accordion jib. Again, it's a great jib when you want to kind of tuck it away, not use it, and then telescope it very quickly when you need to use it. And you can use it at any length in between this length and 15 feet. So a very versatile jib, unlike buying one that is already fixed. It does take two people to move it around when you're traveling with the cases, because the cases are fairly heavy, and probably two people to set it up if you want to go quickly. But you notice we had no tools. It's just a lot of thumb screws. Actually, not even a lot of types of thumb screws. They're mostly the same, so not even a confusing system to put together. and pretty quiet as you're telescoping. Having a gimbal at the end is going to give you very smooth shots, whether you're pushing in, pulling out, up and down, or just moving the jib around, panning. But really cool system. Again, I'm not going to have the samples in this video. I'll probably do another one. But if you have any questions or comments right now about this thing, I'll have a link below this video. You can leave some comments, check out more information through the links or on the blog cheesycam.com.